Hi fiber friends, welcome to the For Knit Sakes channel. My name is Allison and I'm coming to you from El Paso, Texas, where I live with my husband Jonathan, my two sons Levi and Oliver, and our fur baby Lucy. If you are new to the channel, you are checking out my little corner of the internet where I chat about knitting, crocheting, cross stitch, a little bit of sewing here and there, and if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. It's Thursday, August the 30th of 2018, and today is day 4 of both of my children being in school, and after running all of my errands and getting things done earlier this week, I have found the time to podcast. It's been about 3 weeks since I've chatted with you guys, so I have a lot to share, but as always, I will try to keep it short but not speak too quickly at the same time. If you want to find me on social media, you can find me under For Knit Sakes on Ravelry and Instagram. And if you would like to join the Ravelry group, you can either search under the Groups tab on Ravelry for Knit Sakes, or I will provide the link down in the description box below, and you can click on that and it will take you straight to the group. You can find show notes and any information on any knit-alongs that are going on, or you can put a question in the Ask Me Anything thread. Now that I've actually thought about it, I haven't checked the group quite recently, so I don't know if there's anything new in there, but I'll put something down here. I'll check it while I'm editing later on today. So we are just going to jump right in today because I have a short amount of time in the mornings now because Oliver gets off the bus right about lunchtime, and it takes me a little bit of time to edit these podcasts and get them uploaded. So we'll jump straight in with our 300 writing prompts, and the question is, what has ended recently in your life, or what new thing has just begun? And I've already mentioned it, both my kids are in school. It is the first time in 7 years that I have a chunk of time during the day to myself without a little person asking for snacks or to watch TV or to play games with, and I honestly feel a little lost during the day. Like yesterday, I didn't really have to go and do anything except to go to Oliver's school to start some paperwork for a 504, which I can explain later if you don't know what that is. And then I came home and I almost felt guilty for watching TV and knitting, which sounds strange because I was looking forward to this for such a long time, and now that it's here, it just feels weird. So today I decided to podcast, so we'll jump straight into finished objects. I don't know if anybody else has anything new or anything that has ended recently in your life, but share down below if you want to share with anybody else on the YouTube world. So first finished object is going to be my mashup sweater, where I mixed 3 different patterns to make one sweater that I submitted to the Fort Bliss Arts and Crafts contest online. I haven't heard anything yet. That was due on Monday. But here is my faded lace hemmed sweater. And I used 3 different yarns. The top yarn here is Evil Little Goat. It's a one-of-a-kind colorway. I actually have the small skeins left. I'll go ahead and pull those out from here. Try not to tip anything over. I used a lot of all the colors, but this is what I have left of the Evil Little Goat cake. And you'll have to excuse me if things seem kind of odd. My laptop is pretty much destroyed and everything is lagging behind a good 5 seconds of what I'm recording, which is a little frustrating. Here is the Spring Fling colorway by the Creative Obsession, who is Carrie. She also has a podcast as well. And then this is also the Creative Obsession, and this is Poolside. So I pulled these 3 yarns out, and I cast on, just planning to do a plain like Flax light style pattern, seamless raglan top down knitted sweater. But I liked the short row shaping that you get in the Pavement sweater by Veera Valimaki, so I took that, and that's where I started my sweater so I could have a little bit more scoop in the front. And then I used the Flax light raglan separation for stitches and the increases while I was doing the yoke. And then the body was just plain stockinette, and then I decided to add in Mary Annarella, who is also Lyrical Knits. I did her Heart of Glass lace pattern on the bottom of the sweater. And the sizes are all fairly similar. The body stitch counts are all fairly similar. And all the needle sizes are similar, except the Pavement uses a size 7 instead of a size 5. But I've knit enough fingering weight sweaters to kind of understand what needle size I needed for what size stitch count. So I just went with it. I did not gauge swatch at all, which I know is a no-no, but I was worried I was gonna run out of yarn. So I faded these 3 yarns together. I think I explained on the last podcast how I did that. And I did them in sets of 4. So if I was fading in a new yarn, say you have four rows here, the new color is the first row, and then you do 3 of the old color. In the next set, it's 2 and 2, and then the next set is 3 and 1, and then you just continue on with the new color. That's kind of the easiest way I can do it. You can also do it in sets of 5, you can do it in sets of 6. My first faded sweater, I just did every other row, and it didn't gradually change the colors, but this one, I think you can see it really well in this fade right here. Hoping you guys can see that. Not too close. There we go. So you can see where I faded from spring fling to poolside. And it's a very long sweater. It's almost tunic length. And then I just did the same fading on the sleeves just so I could get all of the yarns on the sleeve. And then it's not quite 3/4 length, it's right above my elbow, which is perfect for right now for El Paso. I almost said San Antonio. I do not live in San Antonio. But I'm very happy that that is done. I've actually worn it once when I was out of the house early in the morning, and then by the afternoon I had taken it off because it's still hot. Yesterday it was 100 degrees, and I am ready to not live in the desert anymore. My next finished object is one I did not share last time because I hadn't made any progress on it, but now I have finished it, and it is my And Then Some shawl by Maliha Designs, or Lisa Hans is also her name on Ravelry if you're searching for designers. This shawl is supposed to be knit in fingering weight, but I decided to do it in DK to make a nice cozy shawl. This is all 100% alpaca yarn, so it is very, very cozy and very, very warm. And so I decided to do these two colors. This is some baby alpaca. It's alpaca with a twist. And then the gray is some yarn my mother-in-law bought me from Amazon. I think it's Andean Sun alpaca yarn, but they're both 100% alpaca, and it's nice and cozy. The only things I changed to the pattern was to do less repeats per section so I wouldn't get this gigantic shawl, because as you can see, it's pretty big already. So this is just with DK weight. It's nice and warm and cozy. I won't get to wear it for quite a while, but it's done, and it's going in. I think I just had it on backwards now that I think about it. Yeah, this is the front. Sorry about that. I don't know if I put it on wrong or not. So you do a regular garter stitch to start off with. You start from one end and knit to the other. So this is the bind off edge. And you do some slip stitch work here, and then some just very simple knit 2 together yarn over lace here. It's a really great pattern. I think I will probably make it again. It would be a really good gift knit if you had 2 fingering weight yarns, or in this case, if you did DK weight yarn, you don't have to knit nearly as much because I cut parts of the sections down just so I wasn't knitting this gigantic DK weight shawl. But it is done, and it'll be ready for me whenever it starts getting colder. It's supposed to dip down into the 60s. I know, it's gonna be frigid for El Paso. Starting next week after we get some rain this weekend. So that is done. Next is a half finished object. I don't think I was done with these last time, but these are my socks for my dad for Christmas. He is the one that chose these. And I'm looking, okay, I'm sorry. I was wondering why I had these stitch markers where they were. It's been a while since I've looked at the almost finished sock. It does need a heel still. This is some mystery Regia or Opal yarn. It's very Halloween inspired in my opinion. I just think I see these colors and I think fall and Halloween. So I knit my dad's socks 68 stitches on a US size 1 or a 2.25 millimeter needle. And I think I have done, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40, 80, 90, 100, 10. I did 120 rows total for the whole sock. On row 70, I started doing the ribbing all around the sock. So you can see this part right here is the foot. And I know with my dad's sock, I need to do his heel somewhere around row 65, I think, 10, 20. Yeah, around row 65. So hopefully it'll be nice and stretchy. I'm considering ripping out the cuff and redoing it in a smaller size just because the cuff didn't go in at all, even though I went from a 3x1 rib to a 1x1. So I'm not sure if I want to take that out or not and go down to like a 0 to knit it and then bind off with the size 1. I'm not sure. And that'll lead into my works in progress, which is the other sock. Nothing too fancy. I work on this when I wait for the bus in the afternoon, so I have maybe about halfway up the foot so far, and I'm just gonna knit until they're done. So nothing super fancy. This is just a regular, almost vanilla sock with some ribbing in it just to make it a little bit more stretchy. I've only made my dad vanilla socks before, so it'll be interested to see how he likes these. My next, I guess this is, well, it's not really a half object because I still have 3 more of these to make, but I am making tube socks for my nieces. This is a Cascade 150 sport weight yarn. So I have 48 stitches on a size 1 needle? Yes. No, 1.5. I'm sorry. I took my cubics and I'm knitting these on 1.5. So 48 stitches, and I'm doing a 3x1 rib on the front. And I did 80 rows before I did a 9-row cuff twisted rib on top, and then bound off with a 2, US 2. So I still need to make 3 more of these because I have 2 nieces, and I will make them both the same size, but I think one of them I will do the pattern in the opposite direction. So I'm knitting these toe up, so I'll end up pulling from the inside of the cake instead of the outside. But I'm sure my sister won't notice that the patterns go in opposite directions. So then if the kids mix up their socks, it's not a big deal because they're gonna be the same exact size. And I weighed this one, and it took me 35 grams to make 1 sock. So I will use almost the full cake, 150 grams, to make 4 socks total. My laptop is tripping me out because it keeps lagging. Oliver stepped on my computer at some point, and the whole left side of my, the bottom part of the laptop on the keyboard is bubbled up. The left side is where like all the really important stuff is. So I think I'm gonna have to call it on my laptop soon, but it was working so well to mirror so I could see what I was filming. Very sad. So those are 2 works in progress that I'm working on. They're the only socks that I have on the needle at the moment. And now, if you haven't followed me on Instagram or haven't seen my Humulus sweater disaster, I have frogged my Humulus sweater. My last podcast that I filmed, the whole body was finished and I was picking up stitches on the sleeves. The problem I was having was my color work was so loose that even if I went up needle sizes for the sleeves, there was this like bubble effect where you could see the difference in the gauge between the yoke and where I picked up stitches to just knit the sleeve. So I knit 1 whole sleeve and it looked ridiculous in my opinion, and it didn't block out. And then I tried picking up the second sleeve using a larger needle, and it still just didn't look right. So I had made so many modifications to the sweater that I decided to completely rip it out, and I started a new sweater. And since it's been quite a while since I've seen you guys last, I have already knit the sleeves and blocked them so I could check my gauge. So nothing super exciting. They just look like really fancy leg warmers right now. This is yarn that I have dyed. It is Cherry Tree Hill yarn worsted, just 100% wool. It is not superwash. And I dyed this yarn back in July. So I have 2 sleeves now. And I have the body of the Rock Creek sweater by Caitlin Hunter, also known as Boyland Knitworks. Now I put this on a shorter cord the other day because it was a little bit too stretched out on my 40-inch cord, so now it's sitting on a 32. But the Rock Creek sweater is a bottom-up sweater with a seed stitch front panel. And I can't really stretch it out too much, but oh my goodness, you guys, seed stitch takes forever. I've been working on this for well over a week, and I only have about 7 inches done, and I need 17. So I still have 10 inches left to go. And I used when they were on my 40-inch cords, I was kind of gauging how big the sweater was based on how stretched out the stitches were. I can kind of decide if a sweater is gonna have too much positive ease based on if it's bunched up on the 40-inch cord. If it's bunched up on the 40, then it's going to be too big for me because I need that negative ease around my bust size, which is only 41 inches. So I noticed it was getting a little bit stretched out, which is about the size I would need because it would then fit a little under the 40-inch or around the 40-inch after it was blocked, which is much better than my Humulus sweater, which was swallowing me whole. Even though I knit a swatch, it's up here above my head. It's not like these parts right here. And my swatch lied and said it was 19 stitches to 4 inches, and then my sweater was 16 and a half. So learn my lesson to not swatch, basically, and just go for it, because I can't knit a large enough swatch to really recognize what my gauge is. So I'd rather just start knitting the sweater and then reading the gauge based off of that and either changing it or frogging it or going from there. But I don't know if I'm gonna knit gauge swatches anymore. Some people are gonna wanna burn me at the stake for that. So, but the nice thing is, as soon as I'm done with this body and I knit 10 more inches, I already have the sleeves done and it's just doing the yoke, and then I'm done. But then it's still not gonna be cold enough to wear it, so it'll sit in my sweater drawer until it's cold. Oh well, we'll get there. The last thing I will talk about is my blanket that I am making. If you saw on Instagram, I decided to frog Levi's temperature blanket. I had been crocheting it, but it was taking me a very long time to finish rows. And so I decided to cast on Oliver's blanket just to see and compare sizing, how fast I can knit a row, and how the color changes looked when I was knitting the blanket versus crocheting. Well, I found I was knitting the blanket much more quickly because I didn't have to watch my hands while I was knitting, where I have to watch my hands while I'm crocheting. And I knit across the row much faster than crocheting, plus it uses a lot less yarn. I did a little experiment and I started unwinding Levi's blanket, or just one row, and I knit a row on Oliver's, and I finished a whole row on Oliver's, and I had just gone over half of a row of yarn on Levi's. So I'm gonna use significantly less yarn. It's going to be a lot faster, in my opinion. It's still a lot of rows. It's still 365 times 2, and I'm probably only at like 100 and something days until Christmas now. So the pressure is on, and I need to sit and actually work on that instead of wondering what I'm going to do for the day and not necessarily wasting time, but finding other things to do. So I'm still using the same yarns. It's a mixture of Caron Simply Soft, Red Heart Soft, and Loops and Threads Soft and Shiny. So Oliver's blanket is very blue and purple instead of red and yellow and orange like Oliver or Levi's, because they were born in 2 very different climates, and one was born in the winter or almost winter, and one was born in the spring. So I'm doing these on US 9s. I only have 1 pair right now. I am considering casting on Levi's with some of my Knit Picks needles, even though they're not my favorite. And I cast on 150 stitches, and I'm still working on the proper way to switch the yarns. And I think when I've gotten to the end of the row and I need to change colors, I need to knit both colors so it helps lock it in a little bit better. Oliver's hasn't needed quite as many color changes as Levi's blanket did, but I already frogged Levi's blanket and I put the bits and pieces in a bag and I will use them on his. I'm just trying not to magic knot too many yarns together because I don't want their blankets to fall apart on them. So you can find more information on the project pages on Ravelry as well as any other projects I have mentioned. So like I said, I need to get going on this. I think I've only done December, maybe through the first couple days of January. So I've barely done 2 months on Oliver's blanket and I need to get moving. I've kind of left it and I need to do at least 6 rows a day in order to finish before Christmas both of the kids' blankets. And another thing I also factored in when I was trying to figure out crochet versus knitting, the crochet version of the blanket was going to be like 6.5 feet long based on my gauge, and the knitting blanket is going to be under 6 feet. So I think it's only maybe going to be about 5 to 5.5 feet. I'm kind of gauging it based on like, after I finish 2 months, I'll measure it and then I can multiply that by 6 and then get a guesstimate on how long it can be. And then, oh, I have actually one more work in progress. I haven't showed this to you guys, but I felt like crocheting and I pulled out my scrappy crochet corner to corner blanket. So I have finished one magic cake. I had made 3 total. So I have about 300 grams of magic cakes made. And I'm trying not to pull my loops out. Not a big deal because crochet is easy to fix. I don't have much of a blanket right now, but I figured this blanket will probably use about 600 grams. And I know most of the yarns that are in here, which is, most of them are previously made projects and some of them are minis that I've either swapped with another knitter or that I bought in swapless swaps on, I think it's like Sock Yarn or Scrappy Knitters. There's a Ravelry group that constantly have swapless swaps going on. So my magic cake right now looks like this. Right now I think I am working on a sock yarn for a shawl that I made for a friend. And it's fun because I made these so long ago that I don't quite remember the order that I put them in. I just know I tried to keep it like dark, light, just so I wouldn't have too much dark together and too much light and vice versa. But this is something that I can work on while the boys are showering after soccer practice or something like that, or if I wasn't feeling like working on something else. Which brings me to, if anybody is interested in swapping minis, like 10 gram minis, I am always up for a swap because I have a lot of yarn like this where I have 15 to 20 grams and I'm happy to trade a 10 gram mini just so I can have more colors in both of my blankets. You can see I have my Cozy Memories blanket behind me, which honestly I haven't worked on in a while because those needles are being used on the sport weight socks for my nieces. So I've gotten a fair amount done in the last 3 weeks, but I have lots of stuff planned and I'm going to show you some books and some patterns that I have gotten over the last couple weeks. So those are all the projects that I've been working on. So now comes the sharing of books and patterns. So the first thing I'm going to share is my anniversary gift from my husband, and it is Melanie Berg's, also known as Maryland, Shawls book. And I have been eyeing her designs for quite some time, and I think I only own one, and it's the Spice Market shawl, and I still haven't knit it. But this book has how many shawl patterns? I forget exactly how many, but there are 3 that were brand new that she released right when the book was released, and I already have, you can see, a couple of future projects in the works. So one is going to be the Decemberist shawl. It is a bulky shawl that I am using some old yarn from a previous hat and scarf pattern that I have made. And then I am also planning on making ocean bound. Let me see if I can find a good picture. I don't want to share any of the information, so I'm gonna wait for my computer to catch up and back off. There we go. You can also look these up on Ravelry, and she has just the shawls that are featured in this book on Ravelry. Where's the other one? And then this one, it's called Two Roads. It is a DK weight shawl. It is a little bit more complicated because it has a couple of charts in there, but I'm very excited to make this one for wearing while we are in Alaska, because I'm going to need some heavier weight things. So that is 3 shawls that are ones that I would like to make, and there are so many more beautiful ones in there that I might eventually make, but I figured if I make 3, I've gotten my money's worth out of this book. Plus, it's just so pretty. But if you're thinking about buying it, it is in German and English, so the pages are split into 2 columns where all the German instructions are on the left side and the English instructions are on the right. So keep that in mind if you were looking for just a book in English. That's not what you're going to get, but the pictures are beautiful. The instructions are fairly simple. Her shawl patterns are written slightly different, where she explains the different sections first, and then she writes out the construction steps, if that makes sense. So that can be a little bit confusing. And I was gifted 2 patterns, one from my friend WoolPickle, Lauren. I have talked about her before. She's really gotten into this color work kit, and she is fantastic at it. And she's written a couple of mitten patterns, and she gifted me her Spooky Eyes mittens pattern, which is perfect for Halloween. Has the spooky eyes on the top part of your hand with some pumpkin and bats along the cuff, and boo written on the thumb. I think I'm gonna make these in a purple and a lime green color for the holidays. For Halloween. I like Halloween better than Christmas, so I'm one of those people. And then my friend Melanie messaged me quite a while back and said that I could pick a pattern and she would gift it to me. And so that's kind of difficult because there was lots of stuff that I was looking for, but what I always end up staring at are these very classic, wear every day, very comfy patterns. And I had been wanting to knit the worsted weight version of Ease. I own the bulky weight version of it. So my friend Melanie has gifted me the worsted weight adult version of Ease. I also own the worsted weight version for the kids, which is called Abate, and I have knit that one as well. And one more thing to share, it's not something that I have bought or received. My knitting guild has a fairly extensive library of books, and one of my friends, Susan, was showing me this book, and she was returning it into the library, and I thought it was really cute. It's Amigurimi, but it is knitting. So the boys have picked out, of course, like my oldest son wants the praying mantis, and then my youngest son, wait, it's on this side, wants the octopus. So I'm gonna have my work cut out for me because I've never made anything like this. The closest I've done is I made a crocodile like in 2012 maybe, and that was crochet. I've never knit a creature except for a sheep, and I made it in bulky, so it was nice and big. And I'm a little scared, especially because the octopus requires you to make 8 tentacles, and it's a lot of back and forth knitting, but the pieces are so small they should go fairly quickly, right? I hope it's not a bad choice. I was really hoping my oldest would pick the anglerfish because I thought it was really cool, and they used to like the trying to not get it. There we go. Because they like Finding Nemo, and that was a big fish that was in the movie. But he's like, I really like the praying mantis. I was like, the ones with the really skinny legs, and that's the one you want? Are you sure? But it's got some cool things. It also has some mythical creatures. So it's got Kraken and the Loch Ness Monster and a jackalope, which I think is really cool. So this is the Amigurimi Knits Patterns for 20 Cute Mini Kits by Hansi, Singh. I'll put the information down below in case you didn't catch that. So I think that is all the knitting, crochet, fiber related content, and I kept it fairly short today. Thank goodness. I hope I didn't chat too quickly, but I will sign off for the knitting and fiber arts portion. If you want to hear about what's going on with our life or my life, it's not super exciting, but it could be a big change for the podcast. If you haven't left yet for the knitting fiber portion of the podcast. This could potentially be my last. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to podcast in the future. And so a quick life thing is I did get a call for an interview at a school on Friday, which is tomorrow at 10 a.m. And so I don't know if I'm going to have a part-time job starting soon, but check out on Instagram if that happens. If I do get a part-time job, it will be when Oliver is in school, and he's only at school part-time. And so I don't know if I'm going to have the time to sit and either knit to begin with, or time to sit and podcast, because we also have soccer and stuff going on the weekends. So if this is my last podcast, thank you guys so much for checking it out and being with me every week. It's been really great. I like having this little online journal of what I've been doing in the knitting community, and I've met some really awesome people in the process, and I really appreciate that. But we'll just see. I'll keep you guys up to date. I won't know probably for a while, and I might get there tomorrow and they might tell me the hours or something that's not going to work with my schedule. So there are a lot of variables. We won't get there quite yet, but we'll get into other life stuff now. So bye if you just came for the fiber content, and maybe I'll see you guys later, and maybe I won't. Bye. So, life. I have the boys in school now, and I don't really quite know what to do with myself sometimes, like now. And like I said, I have an interview for a job tomorrow. I don't know what kind of hours or exactly what the job entails, like the nitty-gritty details. It's for a military family liaison at an elementary school here that's actually close by. It's not in the boys district, it's in the El Paso district. So that could also be a huge factor as far as the hours are concerned, but I won't know until tomorrow. But it could be good. I'm actually kind of on the fence of whether I do want to go and get a job, or if I want to enjoy this year to kind of put myself back together and find out what I want to do as an adult, finish renewing my teaching license so I can teach while we're in Alaska. I don't know. I think I'm just going to see how the interview goes tomorrow and how I feel about the school and the person that I'm interviewing with. I'm not sure if it's with the principal or not. So we'll find out tomorrow. I also got a speeding ticket, my first one in 12 years. I completely spaced out that El Paso was in session, and the school zone restrictions are all day long from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. I grew up where school zone restrictions were just during arrival and dismissal, not in the middle of the day. It was 9:30 in the morning, and there was no lights on the signs to remind you that school was in session. So, and there's a lot of traps like that all around El Paso where there's no lights. And if your kid is not in those school district, then you don't remember. So it's a very expensive mistake, but I mean, I can't contest it because I was speeding in the school zone. But I'm just waiting for it to get into the system, and hopefully I can go request defensive driving, take the class, pay my court fees and fines, and blah, blah, blah. We all make mistakes. We all get tickets every once in a while. It stinks, but you just have to deal with it. It just sent my anxiety like in a frenzy last week. And so it was a couple of rough days of parenting because that's all I was stressing about, unfortunately. So other than that, I've just been trying to get the boys situated with the first week of school. They are overtired by the time they get off the bus. Oliver gets off around noon, noonish, like lunchtime, and then Levi doesn't get off the bus until 3 something. So there's a good 2 hours where I'm getting Oliver like second lunch. He's basically a hobbit now, and because he has second breakfast in the morning after he eats breakfast at 6:30. And then also dealing with the school with his celiac. I have to make a 504, which is basically just a plan that the school knows that he has this medical diagnosis. So then like the cafeteria workers know. It's just so everybody in the school besides just his teacher knows his situation. And so having to explain a whole bunch of times that it's an autoimmune disorder and not a gluten allergy is a little frustrating because they don't quite understand that it's just he can't eat these foods. Like, nobody can touch his food. His food can't touch surfaces that haven't been cleaned properly. He can't play with Play-Doh. His gluten-free version of Play-Doh, which is called Mad Matter, which is really cool. That can't touch a surface where Play-Doh has been touched, because then his Mad Matter is contaminated. It's going to be exhausting. But another thing I've been thinking of, maybe I shouldn't get a job, is because it's Oliver's first year in preschool and he's still having to deal with that. And so my brain never stops running, and I don't get a lot of sleep these days. And on top of that, the kids made it 3 days before they came home with like snotty, runny noses. So Oliver couldn't breathe last night while he was sleeping. And then Levi woke up saying his throat felt like sandpaper. They didn't have fevers, so it's just like that beginning of the year gunk that just got them quickly. I thought maybe we would have a little bit more time before they would start feeling yucky, but lots of tissues, vitamin C drops, lots of water. And hopefully nobody else will get sick, because my husband is having surgery on Tuesday, the day after Labor Day, to remove a cyst from his knee. So he's going to be out of commission for a small amount of time. We're not really quite sure. It's not a very invasive procedure, so hopefully he will be able to walk fairly soon and help me parent. I'll probably still be in charge of running errands and everything, but we'll see. Also, another thing I've thought about, if I get offered this job, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I need somebody to adult for me, because I feel like I can't make these decisions on my own. I'm 32 and I feel like I can't make these adult decisions. So a lot of stuff's been going on in my brain, but we really haven't been that busy. The boys started soccer, and it is light years better than baseball from the spring. They're running the whole time. They're doing things the whole time. They're not just standing in the field staring up at the clouds. It still is very hot. Like yesterday at practice, it started at 100 degrees. Thankfully, we got a fair amount of clouds that rolled in, because we had some thunderstorms happen across El Paso last night. Or at least lightning and thunder. I don't know if we actually got any rain. But then the wind started to pick up and it cooled off maybe like after the first 45 minutes of practice. So that was nice. And then we're supposed to get some rain this weekend, and it's going to dip into the 60s in the mornings and be in the mid to upper 80s for the rest of the week. I will take that over 100 degrees any day. And the boys always say how much they miss the rain, and I'm just like, just one more year, then we'll drive to Alaska, and it's probably going to rain so much you're going to start to hate the rain. So military life, not much else you can do, but I think that's all for the life stuff. I'm glad I kept this at a very simple, less than 40-minute podcast, so I hope you guys enjoyed what you watched today, and I may or may not see you soon. I might do like an official signing off podcast in the future. I don't want to say bye, but it just depends on what kind of time I have, and if I decide to take this job, if I get offered the job. Too many what ifs in life, and I stress about all of them. Anybody else think that way? My husband doesn't understand how my brain works sometimes, and that I send myself into these frenzies very frequently. So what can you do? But thanks again for watching, you guys. Like and subscribe if you liked what you saw, and keep following me on Instagram. I'm a little quiet recently. I used to post a lot more, not so much these days, because I can never find like good lighting to take pictures. Surprisingly, with a city of sun, since I live in a house with blackout curtains everywhere, it's hard to find pictures sometimes, or the light to find pictures. But I'll let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys soon. Keep your needles and or hooks or anything else moving, and keep crafting. Bye, you guys.